Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jeana Dunlap, and very proud to be part of the Loeb Fellowship. It's an amazing community. My fellows never cease to amaze, and the two presentations today certainly confirm that I feel like I'm in the right place. I have worked in public and as a public official in Louisville, Kentucky for the last 13 years. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky in economics, and then broke ranks and loyalties to go to the University of Kentucky, which caused quite a stir in my family, but it was good. I studied economics and public policy and administration there. But it wasn't until I started working at Louisville Metro government that I grew an appreciation and a love for real estate. So housing and community development is where I cut my teeth in Metro, doing affordable housing finance, and then understanding over time why so many of the ills and the lack and deficiencies that I saw in the community that I grew up in, why that persisted. Doing government work is very tough, but I pride myself on learning from all the disciplines that I've engaged in terms of trying to get things done. And I sort of characterize what I do as make things happen. So most recently, I was director of the Office of Redevelopment Strategies. It's a probably overly used term. But for me, it meant collaborating or coordinating between people inside government and outside government. I learned a lot from all the disciplines because it takes all those disciplines to actually make things happen, right? So the lawyers, I love lawyers. They get a bad rap, but I learned a lot from the lawyers. The engineers, they're not the strongest with community engagement, but they play an important role in terms of making things safe and tractable in our community. Designers, developers, architects, landscape architects. I've come into a greater understanding and appreciation of what all of those disciplines have to offer and bring to bear in bringing something beautiful into reality. So yeah, I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, but I understand the importance of good design. Over this summer, I've been working with a 2018 Loeb Fellow, Matthew Mazzata, on a project in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a public art project, but what he's understood is that it's so much more than just about art. You know, he's trying to bring function and utility. You know, he's talked to the community and asked them what they needed, and he's trying to address those needs through this art project. And one of the things that came up is I explained to him that the very people that he's trying to engage with have never had the luxury of sitting down with a design professional helping them craft something purely from the imagination. You know, that's something that typically the affluent get to do. So it's not so much that, regular folks and regular average communities aren't interested, and that's why they don't come to the meetings. They just oftentimes don't understand the value and the potential and haven't had the opportunity for somebody to provide that service to them and cater to their needs and priorities. So I get it. Design is important. Want to brag a little bit. How many people have ever been to Louisville, Kentucky? All right. Yes. We're known for several things that I'm proud. So Muhammad Ali is his birthplace and his final resting place. So if you ever come through, you can visit not only the Muhammad Ali Center for Peace and Reconciliation, but you can go to his gravesite. The Kentucky Derby, right? The most famous 2 minutes of horse racing, right? We take 2 minutes and we turn it into about 2 or 3 weeks of nonstop partying. So I do encourage everyone who likes to have a good time to come check us out around Derby. It's the first Saturday in May. The Louisville Slugger. We went to Fenway Park last night and saw the Red Sox play the Houston Astros, and I'm quite certain that many of the professional bats that were utilized last night were made in my hometown, downtown in our historic district on Main Street. The Louisville Cardinals, go Cards, got to represent for my alma mater. We're also known for bourbon, our bourbonism. right? We've turned it into a science, Bourbonism. You can visit the Urban Bourbon Trail and take your pick of a variety of selections of bourbon. So we're proud of that. And then how many people know about the Happy Birthday song and where it came from? It was actually written by two women in Louisville, Kentucky. So probably the most sung song on the planet, in every nation, every language, that originated from Louisville. So I'm very proud, again, and like to brag and encourage everybody to visit. So as many positive things as we have in our local history, we also have some not so positive things. So this is a historic marker in our historic downtown district that talks about the slave trade in Louisville. So unlike a lot of very southern cities that made their based their economy on like plantations and things like that, Louisville was actually a place where human beings were bred to serve as slaves. Right? And so that's a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, so maybe life wasn't as harsh because of that, because there were no plantations to actually work on. But on the other hand, it sort of bred what I consider a sense of complacency. Life in Louisville is very easy. We don't have these traffic problems that you all have around here in Boston. It's very easy to get around. I can get to the airport in 20 minutes. It's very easy. But underneath the surface, there's also something that, at least in my lifetime, I'm in my mid-40s, I'm a Gen Xer, there's an uneasiness underneath the surface of all the niceties in Louisville. And so that has to do with my work and what inspires me. If you're familiar with the horse racing, there's a term called the trifecta. It means you guess all the first, second, and third place winners. Well, in Louisville, we have what I call or consider a trifecta of oppression. Redlining, circa 1937. You'll see the historic map up here in the corner. This practice outlined neighborhoods based on the people who occupied or inhabited those neighborhoods, and at least in its origins, dictated where mortgage capital would flow and where it would not. And it is the origins of the very term redlining, because they actually outline these areas in red on the map in a color-coded system. And so it's no coincidence that East Louisville, what we call or consider East Louisville, has more prosperity than other parts. Also racial covenants, for those of you who, in planning and understand zoning codes and things like that. We actually had race restrictions that dictated how and where people could live. You see an example here that explicitly excludes anybody of color from living in a certain place and ties that to the land. And then urban renewal following. This is what we call Old Walnut Street. It's kind of like the best you could ever imagine in terms of traffic and activity, street activation, commercial and residential. This entire area was destroyed in urban renewal, completely demolished and eradicated. And this was what was referred to as the Harlem of the South. This was the black business district and the only place that African Americans could live, work, and play freely in our city. So take it a step further. Louisville Metro government is a merged government, roughly about 700,000 people in the Jefferson, the city county proper. Our MSA is about 1.3 million people. It includes southern Indiana and some other surrounding counties. But this is a racial distribution map. So right here you see this dark blue section. That's pretty much where the majority of the population are people of color, or African American in particular, with another enclave here. So we are, by some measures, considered the fourth most segregated city in America. I'm sure it's debatable. But for those of us who experience it, West Louisville is a thing, but it's not just one thing. It's 9 neighborhoods that constitute the western part of our city. Some 65,000 people reside there. It's like, whereas Louisville is the largest city in Kentucky and Lexington is the second largest, Owensboro is the 4th largest city in the Commonwealth, and West Louisville is about the same size as Owensboro. And so John Peterson, our curator, asked us to talk about a tough question. And I'm going to, the first question that comes to mind for me, it's a very simple question, but it's a loaded question is, why is there not a single Starbucks in all of this area? This is a fairly large area. Like I say, in the city of Owensboro, there are 2 Starbucks, right, in that small city. But in all of this area, which constitutes, I think, about 12 square miles, not a single Starbucks, a declining number of grocery stores, and there's no shortage of demand for those services, but yet you don't see those things happening or occurring as the normal sort of market would dictate or indicate it should. So that's one of the reasons, despite my work in real estate, bringing abandoned and underutilized properties back into productive use. It's very hard work. We spend a lot of time on those efforts, but we're not seeing the needle really move. And so it was a moment of serendipity. I met a gentleman named Joshua Poe, who's an urban planner and dabbles in GIS. He went to the National Archives and pulled the original Redline maps, documentation, and memorandum, and was able to put them in this platform, a story mapping platform with the interactive component. And we launched this project in 2017. And we've gotten a lot of national and international attention. Unfortunately, not as many local people tapping into it, but I certainly encourage you to visit our map, because what it shows quite clearly and eloquently through this type of approach and presentation is that the decisions and policy practices that were put into place in 1937 are still impacting us today. In fact, shortly after we released our project, Richard Rothstein released his book, The Color of Law. If you haven't heard about it, I encourage you to check it out. There's a wonderful interview with Mr. Rothstein on NPR with Terry Gross and on Fresh Air that just makes it really clear that this was not happenstance. This was not an accident. And certainly Louisville is not unique in this type of outcome. This was done in every major metropolitan city across the United States, including here in Boston. You can pull up the maps and you can see the correlation between decisions that were made by policy professionals, real estate professionals that were made 80 years ago are impacting us today. The question is, what do we do about it? Right? When I give my redlining presentations, and if any of you are interested in inviting me to come do a presentation on redlining, at least what it's meant for Louisville, I get confronted with the question, well, what are we going to do about it? Even my administration wanted me to write a white paper on how to solve 80 years of, economic inequity. It's not quite that simple. So just like good projects take a lot of disciplines and coordination to make it work, it's going to take us as community members to come up with all sorts of radical ideas about how we can tackle these issues. At the end of the day, the majority of people in West Louisville are hardworking. They pay their taxes. But yet we're not as responsive to their needs. So even though there is a higher rate of unemployment, that also means that there's a majority of people who are employed and who deserve to have professionals from multiple disciplines, striving to bring love and compassion and understanding what life is like when you're lacking basic necessities like a full-service grocery store. So this year I plan to, if I can get this next slide, to focus on 3 things. One is combating what I consider redline thinking, right? Black people drink coffee. There should be a Starbucks in West Louisville, right? It's not that complicated. So why is it not happening? Well, I think it's perception. We're also trying to find the balance between revitalization and gentrification. It's the same tools and skill sets that are used to do both, but it's about how, the end does, or the means justify, or we need to pay more attention to how that happens, co-creation as opposed to allocating resources and ideas. And then raising the capacity and confidence levels across the socioeconomic spectrum. For architects and designers that want to come in and be engaged, oftentimes they're a little nervous about doing so. But there are ways that that they can be equipped to operate in a more compassionate, more genuine way, and understand that the frustration that they're getting in return is not truly directed at them, but it's a circumstance of all the history and the experiences that people have gone through. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. Sorry, I'm a little bit over. But I do, if anybody here is interested in collaborating and talking more about any of these issues, I do welcome and invite you to reach out. So thank you very much.